2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor and a former slave figured out something about money that almost nobody understands today. The Stoics, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, weren't trying to get rich, they were trying to be free. And in chasing freedom instead of wealth, they stumbled onto the exact mindset that builds lasting fortunes. Today I'm giving you 10 Stoic money rules, and the reason they work is the reason most people stay broke no matter how much they earn. Rule 1. Separate what you control from what you don't. The Stoics built their entire philosophy on this one idea. Focus only on what's within your power, and let go of the rest. Applied to money, it changes everything. You cannot control the stock market, the economy, interest rates, or what happens next year. You can completely control your savings rate, your spending, your investing consistency, and your reactions. Most people do the exact opposite. They obsess over the market they can't control and ignore the savings rate they can. The Stoic pours all their energy into the controllable inputs and stays calm about everything else. That single shift removes most financial anxiety and almost all bad decisions. Rule 2. Define enough before the world defines it for you. Seneca wrote that it's not the man who has too little who is poor, but the man who craves more. The deadliest trap in modern money is that enough keeps moving. Every raise reveals a nicer car, a bigger house, a better lifestyle just out of reach. The Stoic decides in advance what enough looks like, and once they hit it, the extra income flows to freedom instead of inflation. People who never define enough are on a treadmill that speeds up every time they earn more. You can't win a race with no finish line. Draw the line yourself. Rule 3. Practice voluntary discomfort so you fear losing nothing. The Stoics deliberately ate plain food and wore rough clothes from time to time, not out of poverty, but to prove to themselves they could be fine with less. The money lesson is profound. Most financial fear comes from imagining how terrible it would be to lose your lifestyle. But if you occasionally live lean on purpose, cook simple meals, skip the luxuries, prove you're fine without them, that fear loses its grip. And a person who isn't afraid of having less makes far better money decisions because they're never acting from desperation. Fear is what makes people sell at the bottom and overspend to feel secure. Voluntary discomfort kills the fear. Rule 4. Don't let your possessions own you. Epictetus warned that the things you own end up owning you. Every possession demands maintenance, attention, insurance, storage, and worry. The bigger house needs more upkeep. The nicer car needs more protection. The Stoic keeps life light on purpose because they understand that each thing you acquire is also a small leash. People think buying more gives them more freedom. Usually it gives them more obligations. The wealthiest Stoic-minded people often live surprisingly simply, not because they can't afford more, but because they've felt how much freedom simplicity buys. Rule 5. Focus on what you have, not what you lack. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to be grateful for what he already possessed rather than straining toward what he didn't. This isn't soft self-help, it's a financial weapon. Most overspending is driven by a feeling of lack, a hole we try to fill with purchases. But the hole isn't real. It's manufactured by constantly comparing up. The Stoic who genuinely appreciates what they have feels no urge to constantly buy more, and that contentment is worth more than any raise. Gratitude is the cheapest and most powerful spending filter ever invented. Rule 6. Make decisions with reason, not emotion. The Stoics trained themselves to pause between a feeling and a reaction. In money, this is everything. Markets crash and fear screams, sell. A hot trend appears and greed screams, buy now. Every financial disaster you can name was driven by one of those two emotions overriding reason. The Stoic feels the emotion, names it, and then decides with a clear head anyway. They buy when others panic and stay skeptical when others get euphoric, not because they're fearless, but because they refuse to let feelings make their money decisions. This calm is the single most profitable trait an investor can own. Rule 7. Remember that time is your only real wealth. Seneca's most famous teaching is that we treat time as worthless while guarding our money obsessively, when in fact, time is the one resource we can never get back. This reframes everything. Money is just stored time and freedom. The Stoic uses money to buy back their hours, not to fill their life with stuff that demands even more of their time. And they understand that wasting decades not investing is wasting the most valuable thing compounding needs, time itself. Every year you delay is a year of growth you can never recover. The Stoic starts now because they know time is the asset they're actually managing. Rule 8. Keep a reserve, and you'll never be at anyone's mercy. The Stoics prized self-sufficiency above almost everything. A person who depends on no one, who can weather a storm on their own resources, is truly free. In money terms, this is your savings and your low expenses. The bigger your cushion and the smaller your obligations, the less power anyone has over you. Not a boss, not a landlord, not a creditor, not an economy. Most people's financial stress is really a lack of independence. The Stoic builds a reserve precisely so they can always say no, always walk away, always make decisions from strength instead of need. Rule 9. Don't chase what's outside your nature or your circle. The Stoics warned against envy and the endless comparison to others. In the age of seeing everyone's highlight reel, this rule is more valuable than ever. Most reckless spending and risky financial bets come from watching someone else and feeling behind, but you're comparing your real life to their performance, and it's a game you can never win. The Stoic runs their own race, on their own numbers, toward their own definition of enough, and that immunity to comparison saves them from the lifestyle inflation and get-rich-quick gambles that wreck everyone else. Rule 10, and this is the one that ties it all together. Focus on becoming the kind of person who builds wealth, not on the wealth itself. The Stoics believe that character, your habits, your discipline, your virtues, is the only thing truly yours, and that outcomes follow from who you become. This is the deepest money truth of all. Don't aim at being rich. Aim at becoming patient, disciplined, content, and rational with money. Build those traits, and wealth becomes almost an inevitable side effect. Chase the wealth directly, skipping the character. And even if you get it, you'll lose it, because you became a lottery winner instead of a wealthy person. The traits are the wealth. The bank balance is just the shadow they cast. Now look at what all 10 of these rules have in common, because this is the whole point. Not a single one is a tactic. None of them tell you which stock to buy or which account to open. Every one is about your inner state, your control, your contentment, your calm, your independence, your character. And that's exactly why the Stoics got rich without trying to. They worked on the only thing that actually drives financial outcomes over a lifetime: how a person thinks and behaves. The tactics, the index funds, the savings rates, the budgets, are easy and freely available to everyone. The reason most people still fail isn't a lack of tactics, it's a lack of the mindset that lets them stick to the tactics through fear, temptation, and comparison. The Stoics fixed the mindset, and the money followed. Here's why most people ignore these rules, even when they hear them. They're not exciting. There's no quick win, no hot tip, no secret. Telling someone to define enough, practice contentment, and make calm decisions feels too simple to be powerful. So people skip past it, chasing the next strategy, the next opportunity, the next thing to buy, and they stay anxious about money no matter how much they accumulate. The quiet, almost boring nature of these rules is exactly why they work, and exactly why they're ignored. The best financial advice has always sounded too plain to bother with. And notice the word quietly in the title, because it's deliberate. Stoic wealth doesn't announce itself. It's not the flashy car or the loud spending. It's the person who seems calm about money, who never panics in a downturn, who isn't impressed by status symbols, who has more freedom than the people who look richer than them. They got there not by earning the most, but by wanting the right things, controlling what they could, and staying calm while everyone else swung between fear and greed. That's what quietly rich actually looks like, and it's available to anyone willing to work on their mind instead of just their portfolio. So pick one rule to live this week. Maybe you define your enough number. Maybe you pause before your next emotional purchase. Maybe you practice a little voluntary discomfort and prove to yourself you'd be fine with less. You don't have to become a philosopher overnight. You just have to start treating your mindset as the real investment, because 2,000 years of evidence says that's where the wealth actually comes from. Let me show you how these ancient rules translate into hard dollars, because the Stoics weren't just philosophizing. They were describing the exact psychology that wins with money. Take Rule 2, defining enough. A person who never defines enough lets their spending rise with every raise. Earn $60,000, spend $60,000. Earn $120,000, spend $120,000. They save nothing at any income, forever on the treadmill. A person who defines enough at, say, a $50,000 lifestyle and holds it flat as their income climbs to $120,000 suddenly has $70,000 a year flowing into investments. Over 20 years at 8%, that's roughly $3.2 million. The only difference between those two people was one decision: where to draw the line. The Stoic drew it on purpose. Everyone else let the world draw it for them, a little higher every year, so the finish line never arrives. Now look at Rule 6, deciding with reason instead of emotion, because this one is worth more in real money than any investment strategy. The data on investor behavior is brutal. The average investor earns several percent less per year than the funds they own, purely because fear and greed make them buy high and sell low. The Stoic, trained to pause between feeling and action, simply doesn't do that. When the market crashes 40% and everyone is panic selling, the Stoic feels the fear, names it, and then keeps buying calmly at discount prices. When a mania is sweeping everyone into some hot bet, the Stoic feels the greed, names it, and stays out. That emotional discipline, feeling the emotion without obeying it, can be worth 2 to 4% a year in returns, which over a lifetime is the difference between a modest portfolio and a fortune. Marcus Aurelius wasn't trying to beat the market, he just happened to describe the precise temperament that does. Here's the deeper pattern across all 10 rules, and it's the reason the Stoics got wealthy without chasing wealth. Every single rule works on the one variable that actually drives financial outcomes over a lifetime: your behavior. Not the market, not your income, not some secret investment, your behavior. The tactics of building wealth are simple and freely available to everyone. Spend less than you earn, invest in low-cost index funds, stay consistent, don't panic. The reason most people still fail isn't that they lack the tactics, it's that they lack the inner state required to stick to the tactics through fear, temptation, boredom, and comparison. The Stoics spent their entire philosophy building exactly that inner state: the contentment, the calm, the immunity to comparison, the long view. They fixed the thing that actually breaks, and the money followed almost as an afterthought. And there's a reason this video's promise was quietly rich, not loudly rich, because the distinction is the whole Stoic point. Loud wealth, the flashy car, the conspicuous spending, the performance of success, is usually a symptom of someone trying to fill an inner lack with outer signals, and it's often funded by debt, which means it's not real wealth at all. Quiet wealth is the person who feels no need to prove anything, who stays calm in every market, who isn't impressed by status, and who therefore has far more freedom than the people who look richer than them. The Stoics understood that the goal of money was never to impress strangers. It was to be free, self-sufficient, and untroubled. The quietly rich person has all three, while the loudly rich person is often anxious, indebted, and trapped by the image they have to maintain. 2,000 years later, that distinction is more valuable than ever, in a world built to make you perform a wealth you don't have. So which of these 10 Stoic rules do you most need to live right now? Be honest with me in the comments. Naming your weak spot is itself a very Stoic move. If this gave you a calmer, deeper way to think about money and freedom, hit like so it reaches someone who's exhausted from chasing more. And subscribe, because next time we're breaking down the 9 quiet signs that you're secretly getting rich, even if your bank account doesn't look like it yet.